Hi everybody, and welcome back. This is week 2 of the reading circle, and thank you for so many people who took part this week in our first kind of reading of a short story. And the short story we looked at, of course, was The Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Hemingway, and I had lots of really good feedback about this, and I think everybody said that they enjoyed it, which was really great. Of course, we recognised that it was a really sad story, and if any of you kind of looked into the background, what we saw was that Hemingway was writing in 1938. It was during the Spanish Civil War, so this is a type of war story, but not the type that maybe we're kind of used to thinking about. So, as you all pointed out, it was very much centred on the old man. And making him really the central character. I mean, he's there in the title, so he's the central character. We have a soldier, of course, who's involved as well, but our focus really is drawn to this old man and the sadness, and you did point out the sadness of this story and of his situation. And I think what Hemingway really was trying to do was to point out that war is not just fought and doesn't just impact the soldiers, the people on the battleground. It's impacting, as we can see in this story, the ordinary people. So this old man who's had to leave his home place and leave his family, and of course his family, as we can see in this story, are made up of his animals, who he's really worried about. And much of the conversation that takes place in this story is around those animals and how he thinks that they are. Is he worried about them? He's kind of less worried about the cat, and he knows that the birds will fly, but he's not so sure about others. So it's kind of like interesting details about that. And that's, I think, why I like this story, is that it's giving us kind of insight into war, but not by looking at grand vistas, not by looking at battlegrounds or thinking about countries or thinking about sides, by looking at really a very small detail, just one old man and the sadness he feels about leaving animals. And I think that's what I really, really like about this story. So what we can say is the themes really, and you picked kind of these up. The themes we can say is the suffering of everyday people when it comes to war, the love that human beings have for animals, and I'm sure many of you can kind of connect with that thought, and also the love that we have for the place that we come from. So that, you know, the old man is quite sad to have left where he's from. So all of those things are very easy to pick up on. They're very there. They're very in front of us in this story, and that's interesting. That you did write to me and you said that you could pick out these details, but Hemingway really, if you look at the style that he's writing in, he doesn't kind of give us lots of adjectives and give us lots of kind of huge descriptions about things. He's very pared down. He's very minimalist. And he himself actually referred to this as the iceberg theory, that he had, very little on top, lots underneath, lots of depth. And I think where this really comes from is the fact that his background was in journalism. During the Civil War, he was working as a journalist, and it's this idea, if you think about what journalists have to do, they have to be very economical with their words. Very much they're focused on the now. What is news? News is not what's old, it's what new. So it's very much focused on now. It's not a lot about, it shouldn't be at least, a lot about opinion or any of anything like that. It should be about the facts and focused on kind of details that are important. And I suppose if you think of it like that journalistic style, really, we can see that. If you go back to the story, maybe you can identify that a little bit more and see where that, maybe think about where that came from. So that's Ernest Hemingway, he's a very prolific writer. He wrote lots. He wrote lots of stories. That's just one kind of small snapshot. But hopefully you can take away from that, if you hear his name in future, you can take away that you've learned something, that you've seen a little slice into his life. So the story that we're going to look at this week going forward is called The Hitchhiker by Roald Dahl. Now, I picked this one because I'm a massive fan. I'm pretty sure if you've ever asked me, what should I read, Sarah, I will always say one of the best authors to read is Roald Dahl. And I think that's because for me, he's so descriptive, he's so inventive. And if you think of, when I say the name Roald Dahl, many people think of children's fiction. So we're thinking of things like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the BFG, Matilda, loads of really great books that were turned into movies that you may have seen. But thinking of him as a children's author, I think, is too simplistic. He's not just a children's author. And anyway, those books are brilliant no matter what age you are, in my opinion. He also wrote a lot of other stuff, short stories, poetry. He was a fighter pilot during World War II. He had this hugely interesting life and produced lots of different types of literature and lots of different types of writing works. So The Hitchhiker, I thought, would be quite interesting to look at. It's very different in style from Hemingway. It's written a lot later, of course, in the 70s. And if you were around then, it was actually a production in 1980 on TV, which you can still find on YouTube, of Tales of the Unexpected. They actually used this story as one of their episodes. So you can still find it on YouTube. If you have a look, you can watch and listen to the story, but hopefully you will also read it, which is what we're kind of focused on. So if you're interested in taking part, you can, of course, email me for the story and also some questions to get you thinking about it. Or if you don't want to get in contact with me, you can just Google the story and you'll be able to download a copy of it really easily, or you can just watch it as well. That's the cheating way, but you can just watch it as well. But of course, we would suggest that you read it and just have a think about style and things like that. So basically that's our focus for this week. It's called The Hitchhiker. It's not the last time we're going to look at Dahl. It's the first short story. I'll probably look at another one in a few weeks' time. We're also going to be looking at, or you'll be listening to, a little bit of Roald Dahl on Sunday. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but it's well worth checking out on Sunday. So just to, if you didn't hear already, on Sunday, New Horizons will be having a great kind of Easter festival, remotely, of course. So there'll be lots of really interesting and fun things that will be coming up on our YouTube channel. During the whole day, so you should really, if you haven't already, you should subscribe so that you get notified of all those great activities. And I think you'll really enjoy the programming that's coming up on Sunday. So I think that's everything. I've written myself lots of notes here, and I'm pretty sure that I have touched on all of them. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the story from this week. Please get in touch, as many of you did, and let me know what you think of this new story, maybe how it compares to last week's story. So if you have any thoughts at all that pop into your head about the difference between Dahl and Hemingway, even if you think it's really simple or really stupid, it's probably not. So just throw them out there. And also just to have a think as well about the most important question when you're reading, which is, do I like it? Why or why not? Because actually we very naturally have ideas about what we read, so we should listen to that, because inside the answer to that is a lot about the topics that we find interesting, about our background perhaps, about style as well very often. So style is an important one when it comes to writing and reading. And remember, reading links into writing, and writing links into reading, and there are plenty of opportunities across the week to get involved with English in many different forms. So if you're interested in doing that, email me to find out more or talk to your key worker. Okay, so again, the story for this week is The Hitchhiker by Roald Dahl, and I'll see you guys really soon. Bye!